Okay, we're going to look a little more at triangles and some of the relationships within the triangles, comparing angles and sides. There's a couple things that we already know. You know that the sum of the angles in a triangle, you know they equal 180 degrees. Okay, we knew that. Here's another one. The sum of the lengths of any two sides of a triangle must be greater than the length of a third side, of any third side. Okay, well here's what that means. Let's take a look at this first example. Kathy's a landscaper and is creating a design for a client's backyard. The client gives Kathy the measurements for the existing triangular garden. So this garden is in the backyard and she says these are the measurements. And Kathy says no, incorrect. How does she know this? Well, the reason is if you take the two small sides and add up the lengths, you get 5.4. That is smaller than 5.9. So this triangle is impossible. How do I know that? How do I know they're impossible? Well, here's why. If I take the lengths, 2 meters and 3.4 meters, they add up to 5.4. That's the furthest they could be across. They couldn't be any further. How in the world is 5.9 going to join those two ends? It's longer than that. Okay, so we know that any two sides, when you add them up, they always have to be bigger than the third side. Always have to be bigger. In this case, they're not. Okay, the sum of two sides are not greater than the third side. Now you may be saying, well, why did I pick those two? Well, we could have taken, say, these two, and if you would have added that up, you would have had 9.3. That's bigger than 2, so in that sense it's okay. Okay, and if we would have added these two up, those added up is bigger than the third side, so that would have been okay. It's only when we take these two sides and add them up that it's not bigger, so that's definitely wrong. Okay, so she makes the corrections and finds out that this is actually 5.1 meters. Now if you add this up, 5.4 is bigger than 5.1, so that's okay. But Kathy says this person must have made another error. What's the other error? Well, let's add up the angles. 15 plus 25 plus 140, this equals 180 degrees. That's okay. If I go 2 plus 3.4, this equals 5.4. That's bigger than 5.1. That's okay. So what's wrong? What's wrong here? Well, there's another thing we haven't talked about before. If you have an angle of 25, okay, so that, in other words, you've got two sides and they're opening up 25 degrees. The side that is on the other side would be bigger than if we had an angle that's 15 degrees. This side would have to be smaller because the angle isn't open as big. Okay? So what is the problem here? Well, take a look at this. The angle 25 has a side that is 2 across from it. The angle that is 15 has a side that's 3.4. It should be the bigger the angle, the bigger the side across. Look at this one. The biggest angle, biggest side across from it. Okay, it's like you're opening the mouth bigger and bigger. The bigger the angle, the bigger the side across. Okay, so what are we going to say here? The angle opposite the smallest side is not the smallest. It should be. The smallest angle should be across from the smallest side, and it's not. Okay, so a couple of reflections. All right, let's put a few things down here. the side opposite the greatest angle is always the longest. Okay. The side opposite the smallest angle is always the smallest. Okay. And then lastly, we've already talked about this, the sum of the two shorter sides must be greater than the third side. Okay, so you guys try these two. So pause the video here and decide if these two triangles are possible, and if they are, good, but if they're not, why not? Okay, so hopefully you've got an answer here. In the first one, if you take the two small sides, 7 plus 7, this is 14. Okay, that's too small. It's supposed to be bigger than the third side. So 14 is less than 16. So this triangle is not possible. Okay, how about the next one? This one okay? Well, if you go 7.5 plus 7.5, that's 15. That's okay, that's bigger. All right. What about the angles? Does it make sense that 120 is across from 13 and 30 is across from 7.5? Well, the biggest angle, 120, is across from largest side. And 30 degrees is across from smallest side. So I think this should be okay. This one is okay. Okay. Will triangle A above have two congruent angles? Why or why not? Well, yes, if the triangle did exist and it had two sides that are 7, then it would have these angles that are the same. But in this case, this triangle doesn't exist. Okay. Assignment 3. Go to it.